Today I get to work on a AC dual action for say 42 to 53 GMC and Chevrolet 6-cylinder. The number stamped on the flange 9551. The first thing I wanted to show you was what not to do. See these plugs? Not a good idea to plug those off. If you have vacuum wipers, obviously you're going to run those, but if you have electric wipers, a lot of guys will do is they'll plug them up, and what that does is this top diaphragm, it has to move. It's connected to the links that are inside, and once that arm moves down, the diaphragm tries to go up, runs into these block fittings, and it can't go anywhere, so what it does is it snaps off the end of the link that's inside here. I don't know if this one here is broken or not, and it might not be, but that's usually what happens when you block these. My suggestion, if you run electric wipers and you have one of these dual action pumps, leave these two fittings open. Don't plug them up. Run fittings into them and run hoses out and just let them breathe air. Let them just go to nothing. Obviously you're going to cover up the end of it, with a screen of some kind so it doesn't suck dirt in. But otherwise, just let it go back and forth. Another option is take this casting off and remove the valves. Put the casting back on, and just let that. Then you can plug these up. There's nothing's going to go through it. The diaphragm is just going to go up and down, and nothing's going to happen. The valves will just breathe it, just keep circulating right around in itself. That's the lesson for today. The first thing we want to do is mark the location of the inlet, the location of this top casting in relation to the bottom casting, the body. Just grab a line across it, take a picture of it so that you make sure that these two inlet and outlet stay in the same position when you put them back. Life can get in the way. You can stop this and go do something. When you come back, you've forgotten how it went back together. You can line up however the lines went, and a lot of times that works, but if they're rubber hoses, it doesn't work. Anyway, it's just as easy, just take a picture of it. We want to remove, this has got 8 screws holding this down. What we want to do is take out 7 of them and hold on the last one. But first you want to remove this cover. If there's any fittings, remove the fittings. Take the center bolt out, and it holds down this cover. There's also a gasket underneath that bolt. Oh yeah. Think it's been drinking a little bit of oil, a little bit of grease. Well, this is one reason why I don't bother replacing this particular filter. There's a filter underneath here, and the retainer came across. The retainer is supposed to sit over here, and it looks like it moved a long time ago, but this also covered with grime. Now you can see nothing's going to get through that, so it's going to make it even worse. And what that does is it turns this vacuum side into a vacuum cleaner, and it pulls oil and everything else from underneath right up through the top. It fills up this area, and it makes a mess. As you can see, Look at the mud that's in this thing. It's collected. Muck. Anyway, it's just some of the things that can happen. And now we're down to these screws. Remember, take out 7, hold on the last one, I'll show you why. Alright, on that last screw, we're going to hold down this casting. I ain't going to do it with my bare hand because it's all greasy. Take that last screw out, and you'll notice that it's stuck down. Just from so many years of being held together with those screws. Take a putty knife, put it where the two halves come together, and just tapping it. And you'll notice how that jumped up a little bit. This thing is destroyed. There's the reason to hold off on that last one is this has to do with this spring. It's almost like a valve spring. It's pretty tough. And by the time this gets on here and that diaphragm sits in the middle, that spring is crunched down to roughly about 1 inch. Look at the crud that's in this thing. It exposes the inlet and outlet valve. You want to remove this center screw, and that it holds the clamp that holds the two valves in, and the valves just kind of pop out. Boy, this thing is in sad shape. Underneath that there's a couple of gaskets. There's one underneath each valve, and you want to make sure that those get out of there. I think we're just going to dip this into the wash tank and let it soak for a while. So here we have, this is the spring seat. As you can see, the diaphragm is well used. See, that right there is the seal that's supposed to be stuck down in here. And that seal keeps any of the oil and grime from getting up inside. Looks like the links is still good. Another thing you're going to watch for is down in here there's a breather. It's like horsehair, and it's held in by a little wire clip. Looks like most of the stuff is gone, just been dissolved over the years. There's still a little bit of it left in there. It's easy to shine a flashlight down inside, and you can see, yeah, it's pretty much gone. Anyway, a lot of this will come out when it goes through the wash tank, where it's going to sit for a little while. Turn it over, and we go to the fuel side. Okay, we want to remove the fittings as soon as I find my wrench. I don't like to leave the fittings in there because anything can get stuck inside of there or get stuck behind it. And if you're not glass beating it or putting it through a wash tank, then you'll never know that something was stuck behind there. And the pump won't work. You think you did something wrong, when in fact you did. You didn't remove that fitting. Okay, don't forget to mark the casting. Sometimes you can take a hacksaw and just scribe a line in between the two of them. Just makes it easier, eliminates the problem of forgetting. And this is the filter. Doesn't look too good under here either. It's just a press fit on there. And the gasket. The bail. And you can remove all 6 of these screws. Seeing as how there's a spring under there, but it's not. It's under the diaphragm, not on top like the vacuum side. So it's not going to tend to fly. Again, this side's stuck down, so we go. Try to catch it. These are the original diaphragms from sometime in the 50s. Here's your inlet and outlet valve. These 2 screws will hold down that clamp. And these valves will just pop right out. And just like the other side, there's a gasket. And it's good and petrified in there, so I just take something sharp and run around there and knock those out. Now, your diaphragm might be a little tough to get out of there. So if it doesn't come right out, I'll give that a few tugs, and it gets that diaphragm material up out of the way. Now we want to push this down and tip it back. Give it a couple of twists, and out it comes. Sometimes it's not so easy. This time it was. There's a seal down in here for the retainer. It's a pretty small hole too. I can tell this is an original. Now, you can pry it this way, but I don't want to destroy any of this casting. So I come up from underneath, catch the edge of that seal, and after a few taps, it pushes it right out. Now, I'll show you later on about how this seal sits. so that you don't put it back in there wrong. If there's a problem with the links, you'll know it right away. You'll be able, you can hold your finger on it, you can see them in there. Hold your finger on it, move that arm, and you'll feel it trying to push your finger out. If there's a problem with the arm, with the pin, or wear in the pin, if that arm twists back and forth, or side to side, if you suspect there's a problem, or you have to get those links out of there, or a broken spring, you can remove the pin. You take a chisel and cut that washer right there on the outside. Cut that washer off, drive the pin out, and it'll come right out the other side, the arm and everything will come right out. This doesn't have a problem, so I'm not going to pull it out of there. But it is going to take a trip through the wash tank. And that's it. Everything's going to go through the wash tank, get cleaned up, then we'll glass bead it, take it out of there, wash it down, clear coat it, and then we're going to flatten out all the surfaces all around in here, anywhere that the castings are going to go together, along with the casting itself in the vacuum, which is over in the wash tank already. So we'll be back in a short bit. Well, everything's all cleaned, surfaces are flattened, it's clear coated, and we're ready for some assembly. Let's take care of the fuel section first. 2 gaskets, 1 under each valve. If you forget which way these valves went in which hole, look down inside. See the little pin that's sticking up there? It won't allow it to go in the wrong way. And you don't want to drop it like I just did. So we put this with the rivet up, the other one rivet down. One's the outlet, one's the inlet. The bracket, the retainer, and the 2 little screws. Tighten them down. We need the gasket for here. For the bowl. The new filter. I'm going to tap it down until it touches these little bumps right here. It'll touch there, or the center post will hit the screen. Don't go down too much with it, because it'll pop the screen right out. Put on the bail. This can go on 2 different ways. You can go on these two holes opposite each other, or they can also go in here. I tend to use these all the time. The bowl all nice and clean. Snug it down. Now to make sure that you got the bowl centered in here and it's sealing on it. This here is the inlet. You should be able to blow air in and not suck air out. With the outlet, you'll be able to suck air out and not blow any in. And that works. And that works. Now, the vacuum side. Same way as the fuel side, you got a gasket going under each one, under each valve, and you'll notice that one of the holes is smaller than the other, and that will tell you that the valve that goes in that one, rivet up, make sure it seats flat. Retainer, and the screw. Tighten it down. We got a gasket for the metal cover. Don't bother putting that screen in, or the screen retainer. It's more misery than it's worth. You got a gasket. Watch out with these little tabs. You don't want to set the tab on top of this, because it'll make it sit up. Snug it down. Just keep in mind that you're going at steel bolt, going into cast aluminum. You don't want to pull the threads out. And you can test this one also. This is the outlet, and the other one will be the inlet. You should be able to treat it the same way you did the other as far as testing it. Seal. These are the seals that we make, and this is the retainer that we use in place of that original one. The original one came with the seal, this part of the seal going down inside the pump. Ours works just the opposite. There's a ridge here, and the edge of the seal sits right in it, and it holds it. Your sealing surface is this area here and the center. Drop it down inside. Use whatever tool you can to drive it in. I think a 3/4 socket, I'm not sure. You would think after all this time I'd remember. I don't. Now we want to dimple the casting around here, 4 spots, to keep that seal from lifting. If you remember on the vacuum side, when I took that diaphragm out, the seal came out with it because it wasn't staked in. Put a little motor oil on that. You can use a little grease, white grease, whatever you got. We just don't want that pull rod to run dry. Just spring. Now that slot has got to hook onto the link that's inside. So you want to aim it towards the front. Flip it over. Look down inside, and you'll see where, as you're pushing in, it'll go up and hook onto it. I don't know if I can get that in there or not. A little hard to see. But it's important that you do the fuel side first. Don't put that seal in yet. That way you'll be able to see what you're doing. Find whatever reference mark you made so that you get these going back in the same place. and put 2 screws in, one in opposite each other, and run it through the diaphragm. But don't tighten them down yet. In fact, you can run it in and get it caught. This seems how the arm on this particular pump is so short. You're going to need like an adjustable wrench, something to give you a little extra leverage. Line up the screws, and like I said a minute ago, just run them about halfway down. Just get them caught so that it holds it. And put the rest of the screws in. And run them down about halfway. The reason is you want to make sure they go through the diaphragm. And these ones by the bail tend to make it a little difficult. So rather than fight with it, I'll take it out of the way. Now before you tighten them all down, bring that all the way up till it stops. And you're preloading it. Well, what we're doing is preloading the diaphragm. While it's in there, tighten down at least 4 of these screws. And it keeps it from moving. Now by doing this, and it makes the diaphragm last a little longer, keeps it from stretching out. Bail back on. And you can test it. It's good. Flip it over and we can do the vacuum side. First thing we want to do is set the seal in. Again, it goes in the same way that the fuel side went in. Just make sure to stake this. You're just kicking the casting down and it holds it. Got a little motor oil in this under, or grease. Lubricate it somehow. Now this is when you need a short adjustable. Well, in my case it's because the bench is so close to it. Get it started in the hole, put it straight down, and you'll feel that the link's in there. Pull it up, just lift it a little bit, and then hook it on. spring seat, the spring. Find your Jeekers. I gotta find my mark. Why I might not even have done one. Well, what I'm gonna have to do is find out which way it goes. Okay. I didn't realize it, but there's my mark. And just like the other side, get 2 of the screws caught. It's a little tricky on this one here because that spring is so tall. If you can get it. Run those 2 screws about halfway down. Put the rest of the screws in. Now the vacuum side poses a problem for a lot of people, and it has to do with that spring. That spring tends to push everything down, the diaphragm down as you're working on it, and it pulls these holes, pulls the diaphragm in, and it folds the holes in. So this one here happens to be fine. Same with this one and this one. What you got to watch for is that the diaphragm doesn't get caught behind this casting right in here. It's almost there, and I think it's going to make it without too much trouble. Sometimes pulling that arm down and pushing the diaphragm up brings the holes back into line again, like it did with this one. Now with the vacuum side, rather than preloading it down inside, you want this to be flat. You want it to be in a neutral position. Just watch the diaphragm. You'll see it go up, and if you go down too far, the diaphragm comes up inside. So we want it to go halfway, and we'll make it flat, and then tighten down the screws. While you're tightening these screws down, just like this center bolt, remember it's going into cast aluminum. The threads aren't super strong, but they can take some tightening. Now you want to test this to make sure you're going to get vacuum. Put your thumb over the outlet while it's in the relaxed position. Pull it down and you'll feel pressure. While it's in the relaxed position, pull the arm down, hold your finger over the inlet and let it up. And you'll feel it. It's just the opposite of the way it works on the fuel side. Well, that brings us to the end. If those tests work, you did a fine job. it's ready to go back on the car, or the truck I should say. If this video helped you out, let me know in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed, you can do that. I'd appreciate it. Don't forget to click on the little notification bell. And if you want me to do up a pump that maybe you're getting ready to do, or you're stuck on, leave something in the comment section. You get in touch with us by phone at 781-335-8860, or on the web it's then-now.com. We're on the East Coast. So that'll do it. I hope it helped. Be safe out there.